It's Tuesday, December 30th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. Weather cancels flights in and out of the region, putting holiday travel in limbo. In our year-end conversation, New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt talks trade, power, and healthcare.
A cold New Year's Eve expected for the Maritimes with snow in the forecast New Year's Day.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Air travel is beginning to get back on schedule tonight after foul weather forced cancellations, closed the region's largest airport, and threw holiday plans into chaos. CTV's Emma Convey is there and has the latest.
Flights are moving now that the worst of the weather has subsided. Still, travelers are scrambling. Lineups at terminals, passengers standing around, and departure and arrival boards glowing orange.
Supposed to be going to the Florida Keys, so we're crossing our fingers. We'll get out. We were supposed to be there now.
We're rescheduled for 8:30 tonight, but we had to get out of the hotel.
I got a notice from them 2 days earlier, and they said that I could switch my flight if I wanted because it was very likely that they were going to be canceled or the weather was going to disrupt it. So then there were options for vouchers or to change it for free, so I switched it.
This all comes after Halifax Stanfield International Airport closed its airfield for 10 hours yesterday.
So what we had yesterday occur here at the airport was a significant freezing rain event where we had persistent freezing rain occur at the airport, affecting the airfield and the ability for our crews to stay ahead of that for a number of hours. So the airfield itself closed around 3:30 p.m. yesterday and wasn't able to reopen until just after 1 a.m.
Around 50 cancellations and diversions during the time of the closure. Some diverted flights were sent to the other Atlantic provinces, while others to Toronto and Montreal.
Most of the flights that were planned for the early morning had already either been canceled or were looking at delays as the airlines were trying to understand when the airfield would reopen. So earlier this morning, we saw some flights start to operate. There are flights operating now, but we still have a number of delays and cancellations on the board.
Passengers are, for the most part, understanding of the situation. The last week of the year has been trying for travel, impacted by a series of weather events.
We went to Lululemon.
We got lunch.
And we got lunch.
Taking advantage of the opportunity to visit more of Halifax, and this has been a great...
I'm like having fun here, but I'm like also ready to go out home at the same time.
I think we're just rolling with the punches. Had you seen our hotel this morning? It was a bit of a disaster. Everyone's stir crazy, so we're happy we came here early.
Anxious this morning.
Some flights have added, or some airlines, mind you, have added more flights in and out of Halifax today, and that has helped with the backlog. Todd.
Emma, you're at the airport now, of course. Have you spoken with many folks who are still stuck, still trying to figure out their plans?
Yeah, a few actually, Todd, including one woman with her 3 children who are trying to get back to Regina. She says as of right now, they're not able to get out of here until later in the week.
Trying to get to Regina. All right, that could be a tough one. Emma Convey at a slightly quieter Halifax Stanfield International Airport. Thanks, Emma. Well, police in the region have reported dozens of collisions. At one point, tens of thousands of Maritimers lost power. Those stormy elements hit Cape Breton today. Freezing rain, snow, high winds canceled other travel plans as ferry crossings were dropped. More now from CTV's Ryan McDonald.
Some people went to bed last night with an icy mess outside. Others woke up to it after a storm system that brought freezing rain, snow, or rain, depending on where in the Maritimes you live.
Unfortunately, what we've seen this month is just storm system after storm system after storm system.
In Cape Breton, the story today was high winds after rain overnight and early this morning. In what has been an all too familiar theme this December, ferry crossings between North Sydney and Newfoundland were cancelled again today. Tonight's sailings are called off too.
And in the long-range forecast, we're seeing another system moving in later this week.
By this afternoon, here in the Sydney area, the sun was shining again and the pavement was bare on the roads and highways around here. But between 7 a.m. yesterday and 10 a.m. today, RCMP in Nova Scotia say they responded to dozens of accidents all across the province.
Due to the freezing rain and the conditions, we were told, I think there were 93 different collisions across the province.
While the vast majority of those were on mainland Nova Scotia, the Mounties are reminding people of the hazards anytime it gets slick like this.
As you know, there's still some rutting here on some of the highways, the parts that aren't done, and that's causing a problem where people are actually driving in the rut and they're actually driving in what are like little lakes.
So we were excited to see that the wind and rain actually came today and not tomorrow for our New Year's Eve celebration.
Despite today's wind gusts, the setup, including the big Ferris wheel, went ahead today in downtown Sydney for the Cape Breton Regional Municipality's New Year's Eve party planned for tomorrow night.
Overall, it's not too bad for our crews. They're used to setting up in some winds, but the winds have subsided, so it's not impeding in setting up the New Year's Eve celebration.
Meanwhile, Nova Scotia Power says its system held up pretty well in all of this mess, with only a small number of outages, adding that an outage affecting about 15,000 customers last night in the lower Sackville, Bedford and Waverley areas had to do with a piece of equipment at a substation and doesn't appear to have been caused by the weather. Ryan McDonald, CTV News, Sydney.
And there's a look at Antigonish right now, where it is currently 1 single degree. Let's bring in Kayla Mitchell. There's been a lot to look at. We had plenty of warnings and watches. You were taking all of it into account as you put together that storm report behind you, and there are some fairly impressive numbers.
Yeah, a quick breakdown of what we saw from this weather system. So the most snow out of it was reported in the more northernmost areas of New Brunswick, where some areas came in between around 10 and 20 centimeters of snow. Now, you'll notice that I have amounts here for Fredericton and Miramichi listed in millimeters, and that's because this weather system was so mixed that a lot of these reports, and they contained snow, ice pelts, freezing rain, and rain, just reported totals in millimeters, so all of that precipitation put together. But speaking of the freezing rain, there were a number of sites in the Maritime that reported the number of hours of freezing rain that was experienced. That included 6 at the St. John Airport, 8 at the Moncton Airport, 3 at the Charlottetown Airport, 6 hours at Halifax International, and 4 at Greenwood in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia. That freezing rain was then followed up by rain that in some cases 4 parts of Nova Scotia totaled between 20 and 40 millimeters. So a very mixed weather system, but one that did have some impacts around the region. And it's still having some impacts on us for this evening and tonight. There's a gusty west wind in behind it. That's generating some flurries and some snow squalls, and a snow squall watch remains in effect. Cumberland, Colchester counties and around the Minas Basin, Hants County, and extending down through the Annapolis Valley. The risk of snow squalls there will continue as we go through this evening and tonight. In fact, on radar, we can already see a band of some pretty intense snow squalls just coming in off the Minas Basin in the vicinity of Parsboro before climbing up in some of the higher terrain there in Cumberland and Colchester counties. So that one actually standing out on a snowfall outlook map, so you want to be careful if you're driving anywhere around the 2 or the 209 in the vicinity of Parsboro, the Annapolis Valley, and across the southwest Nova Scotia tonight into tomorrow. That would include, Todd, the Tri-County region, Shelburne, Yarmouth, Digby counties, all those areas under risk of more snow squalls.
Okay, very good. We'll see you for the full forecast a little later. Now, one of the more dramatic impacts of all that ice was a Fredericton transit bus that flipped over. A passenger tells CTV News there was confusion about trying to get off the bus. Here's CTV's Nick Moore.
First responders received the call late Monday afternoon, just after 5 p.m., that a Fredericton transit bus had flipped onto its side and took out a power pole on Hilton Road. Fredericton police say 7 people, including the driver, were taken to the hospital by paramedics. Nathan Curry was a passenger on the bus, and he tells CTV it appears the bus driver was trying to give a vehicle parked on the side of the road some room, but that the back end of the bus spun out and flipped.
We couldn't get to the emergency exit at the windows because, well, half of them were buried and the other half were above our heads. So I opened up the roof hatch and started helping people get out through the roof hatch.
Nathan Curry says there were 2 people on the bus who looked like they had serious injuries. Fredericton police did not confirm the extent of injuries, but described them all as being non-life-threatening. Curry says there was confusion from passengers on the flipped bus about how to get off the bus. The transit union said it did not have any comment on the incident today. NB Power was, of course, on the scene to take care of that utility pole that had been taken out. And in all, Fredericton Police and Fire responded to 10 other motor vehicle collisions on Monday afternoon into the evening, everything from vehicles leaving roadways to vehicles that were stuck in icy parking lots. Todd.
Busy night. Nick Moore in our Fredericton studio this evening. A Halifax City Councillor is telling people to call police if they spot a construction crew at Dartmouth Cove. Councillor Sam Austin insists a local developer does not have permission to start dumping slate and rock to fill in a strip of shoreline. It's the latest move in a debate over an area that could be used to build housing. A lobby group opposing the work intends to monitor the goings-on. It's been fighting to maintain a walking trail along the water. Mayor Andy Fillmore wrote the province saying there are plans to begin work at the site January 5th.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
A man recently granted day parole for nearly 40 years after killing a New Brunswick police officer has been turned over to American authorities. Our Hafsa Arif joins us. She's in the news center, and you've got details on this. What do we know, Hafsa?
Yeah, well, Todd, Anthony Philip Romeo, as of yesterday, is no longer in Canada and no longer under Canadian supervision. The Canada Border Services Agency confirms the 62-year-old was transferred to U.S. Customs and Border Protection earlier this week, which is less than a month after he was granted day parole. Romeo is an American citizen and was serving a life sentence for the 1987 killing of New Brunswick Highway Patrol Constable Emmanuel Aucoin, who was shot and killed during a traffic stop near Fredericton. At the time of that killing, Romeo was already wanted for another murder in New York State. During his trial, a psychiatrist testified Romeo believed he was being followed by a monster and thought Constable Aucoin was that monster. Despite being denied full parole in both 2012 and 2022, the Parole Board of Canada granted Romeo day parole earlier this month, citing his remorse, long-term treatment for mental health issues, and a detailed risk management plan. Because Romeo is not a Canadian citizen, the CBSA says it is required to remove anyone who is in the country illegally. Constable Aucoin's daughter, Valerie, says the news has been difficult to process.
It is somewhat reassuring to know that he will never be able to come back into Canada, but that doesn't mean he could not reoffend in the States, and I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody or any family down in the States for any reason, so it's unfortunate.
Now in the United States, Romeo is outside Canadian jurisdiction, meaning he's no longer subject to supervision or conditions imposed here. And so far, as of right now, Romeo's status and any conditions he may face in the U.S. have not been made public. We reached out to U.S. Customs and Border Protection for comment, and they say they're kind of working on that request at the moment. Todd?
Okay, perhaps we will hear from them. Hafsa Arif in the CTV News Center right now. Thank you. And with that, we'll take our first break of the evening. There's still plenty left to come. Cold night ahead of us, risk of snow squalls. Kalen returns with the full forecast. But next, looking for a forever home.
It changes small amounts each year. Like you won't see the big jumps. So I think it'll be steady growth.
The gap between wanting to own a home and being able to afford one here in the Maritimes is not narrowing. I'll tell you why next. There is hope stable prices, more selection, and lower interest rates will open the real estate market to eager home buyers around here. However, the dream remains out of reach for many Maritimers. Here's CTV's Maria Saru in Charlottetown.
For islanders dreaming of a place of their own, the gap between wanting a house and affording one can still feel wide. Margaret Campbell and her partner moved back to PEI after living in Halifax, hoping to buy at a better price.
At least we'd own our home and we'd be secure in the knowledge that we're not going to get rent-evicted.
Instead, the couple and their 4 kids settled on a rented 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. They've put the dream of buying on hold, saying it's simply not possible, though it's what they want for their family.
We just want somewhere to live forever and our kids to have a yard to play in and preferably their own bedrooms or at least rooms that are big enough to share comfortably. Somewhere that when we're gone, one day they'll have that.
Numbers released this month by the PEI Real Estate Association show that the benchmark price of a home this November was almost $370,000, down from about $374,000 last November, a drop of roughly 1%.
There's actually quite a high inventory of houses here on Prince Edward Island the past couple years, really, which will give buyers more of an opportunity to be picky.
Real estate agent Jeff McKay adds, despite that recent cooling, prices overall are still headed up.
It changes small amounts each year. Like you won't see the big jumps. So I think it'll be steady growth. But marginal.
Nationally, British Columbia has the highest home price of around $968,500. New Brunswick has the lowest at $334,000. Homes here on PEI are still well below the national non-seasonally adjusted average price of about $682,000, according to the Canadian Real Estate Association. But for families like Campbell's, buying is still a stretch. Maria Saru, CTV News, Charlottetown.
As lobster season continues, online we have pictures of a rare dark blue lobster that was hauled up off New Hampshire. You can see that right now at our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Okay, still to come. Snow on the way for much of us on Thursday. Kalen will have the details in the full maritime forecast after this commercial timeout. There's a shot overlooking uptown St. John towards the Port of St. John, currently -9. And if you remember just a few minutes ago, we had a live shot of Antigonish where it was +1. So
yes.
Bit of a contrast there. And Kayla Mitchell, I'm no meteorologist, of course, but I am going to make a bold prediction that the good folks of Antigonish are going to see colder temperatures heading their way.
Well, you would be dead on with that prediction, Todd. What's happening is now in behind that weather system that brought us that icy mix of weather at the start of the week, we're back into a gusty west wind, and behind it, it's grabbing that colder air in place off the continent. It's bringing in. So it is first western parts of the Maritimes that are feeling that colder air, like St. John. But even those eastern areas, like parts of Cape Breton, that were still just on the plus side of the scale, you're headed back below zero as we move through tonight. We have another weather system on its way in.
Of course we do.
This week, yeah, and this one as well. Looks like it's going to be a wintry mix. This is going to start off with a fairly quick-moving low-pressure system making its way through the Great Lakes region and towards the northeastern U.S. It's going to really start to intensify rapidly once it reaches Cape Cod, and then after that, it could take a path that could take it towards the southwest of Nova Scotia or potentially up through the Bay of Fundy. What that means is, for Nova Scotia on Thursday, you're likely looking at a mixture of snow, ice pellets, and rain, with a higher potential that there could be just snow around southern and eastern areas of New Brunswick, as well as the west of Prince Edward Island. The east of Prince Edward Island likely to see a mix of precipitation out of this weather system as well. So this really looks like it's going to start ramping up in the Maritimes by Thursday afternoon, ongoing into Thursday evening and Thursday night before beginning to exit off towards the northeast of the region as we head into Friday morning. Snowfall expectations with this one. That's going to be tricky because of the mixture it is expected to bring in. Right now for Nova Scotia, I'd ballpark it as 5 to 15 centimeters, depending on the nature of that mixture of snow, ice pellets, freezing rain, and rain. Now, the most rain at this time looks like it'll come in across the eastern half of Nova Scotia, maybe clipping as well eastern parts of Prince Edward Island. That would keep the overall snowfall amounts for that part of Nova Scotia a little bit lower. In the southwest, though, if you miss out on some of that rain and some of the ice pellets, that's where some of the snowfall totals can climb up between 10 and 15 centimeters. Now, on the current path of this weather system, the highest chance of areas remaining in the colder air looks like it'll be around eastern, central, and southern areas of New Brunswick, and then there would be higher potential of some overall totals between 10 and 20 centimeters. Bottom line is, keep tabs on that Thursday forecast check-in in case there are any weather alerts issued for your area by Environment Canada. Now, speaking of weather alerts, we have some that have been issued for tonight, and they concern the presence of snow squalls. And the risk of snow squalls is going to be highest tonight around southwestern areas of Nova Scotia, up through the Annapolis Valley and areas surrounding the Minas Basin. You can see as we take our timeline through, more blues kind of painting in to that part of Nova Scotia, indicating that flurries are expected to become more widespread for those areas. And with those flurries within them, that's where there will be the risk of those snow squalls, bringing visibility down and leading to enough accumulation in some cases that there could be some snowy roads. Now, the risk of snow squalls will carry on into Wednesday morning and possibly even Wednesday afternoon for a few areas before it looks like it's going to be diminishing later Wednesday evening and Wednesday night. Now, if you're thinking about New Year's Eve plans in the Maritimes, so for Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, bundle up for it this year. Temperatures are going to be cold and the wind is still going to be on the blustery side. Speaking of cold temperatures, most low temperatures tonight, Nova Scotia, falling a few to several degrees below the freezing mark, down to around -10 tonight for Charlottetown and Summerside. Many areas of Prince Edward Island, and low temperatures for New Brunswick for tonight, falling into range around -10 to -15. Here's a look at the 7-day outlook, which will, of course, take us into the new year, to 2026. There's that snowy weather system in the forecast for New Year's Day for New Brunswick on Thursday. Cold air follows in behind that weather system, much like what we're experiencing this evening and tonight. So cold through the upcoming weekend. Chance of flurries after that on Monday, and sunshine, colder temperatures in the forecast for Tuesday of next week. Here we are for Nova Scotia. Wintry mix of weather developing on Thursday, and behind it, gusty, colder winds, flurries, probably risk of snow squalls on Friday. Flurries in the forecast for Saturday. Chance of flurries on Monday of next week. Tuesday, a mix of sun and cloud. And for Prince Edward Island, the forecast, snow expected on Thursday. There might be a mix for eastern parts of PEI. Flurries in the forecast for Friday, followed by a mix of sun and cloud, colder temperatures on the weekend, and a chance of flurries on Monday of next week, Todd.
So a little good news in there. If you're planning to do the polar dip, Thursday, kind of like the best day of the week.
Thursday? Thursday's when we got that snow.
Yeah, but look at the temperature there. It's 0.
Oh, because it gets a little bump up because of that system coming in. Yeah, I guess so. You could look at it that way.
Got to take the benefit there. Okay, thanks. We'll see you later for the wake-up weather. Next, our year-end conversation with New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt. Stay with us. In our second year-end interview with the Maritime Premier, Susan Holt of New Brunswick discusses why a forestry deal is urgently needed, the cost of health care, and the future of NB Power. And we are in Premier Holt's office. Thank you very much for the invitation. Good to be here.
Well, welcome. I'm happy to have you.
Looks great. Christmas tree, ornaments decorated by kids.
Yeah, students from schools all over New Brunswick send their ornaments into the Premier's office so I can get this beautiful tree and be reminded of Janeville, as we were talking about, and also lots of different places around the province.
Looks great. You recently sat down with Internal Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc of New Brunswick. Much was discussed, the one project, one assessment. How is that going to make a difference for getting projects moving in the province?
Well, I think it's going to really align and bring the teams of people doing this work closer together, because it used to be that we would do our assessment in the province and they would do an assessment at the federal government, and they would happen on different timelines, and they would ask for the same information but in different ways, and that meant that the proponents had to jump through extra hoops, and even our folks weren't as engaged with each other. So by harmonizing the two processes, where we bring the federal agencies and the provincial agencies and everyone together to do the work concurrently, to make sure we're exchanging that information all the way through so that we're meeting both federal regulatory standards and provincial regulatory standards all at the same time, with the same information and data, but as many eyes on the project, the proponent gets a timeline that's more efficient, that we're not doing duplicative effort and wasting energy and tax dollars on redundancy. We can have everybody in the same room as part of the same process. So I think that we can do a better assessment process that's clear and more predictable for the people involved.
Let me ask you about the Sisson mine. There's been some pushback. There's been some pushback on the Alberta pipeline deal, of course, as well. When you look at those, are you concerned that we're going to be able to get these large projects, these, as the Prime Minister calls them, nation-building projects, off the ground, get them built?
I'm optimistic that we will, but the key here is that it can't be at all costs. And I think that's what New Brunswickers are expressing, right, is that we want to make sure that we have put all the systems in place to protect what we love, which is a province that is rich in natural beauty, in wildlife, in incredible waterways. That's why people come to New Brunswick, right? I think we have the most beautiful province in the world. And while we absolutely want to see the development of our resources for our provinces and our country's benefit at a time when the minerals that we're looking at Sisson, tungsten and molybdenum, we need those for defense, for Canada's sovereignty. We also need those minerals for environmental progress, because green energy requires batteries, and batteries require tungsten, and solar panels require indium. And so if we want to advance the green energy transition, we need to do that with some of these minerals. But we have here in New Brunswick brilliant environmental engineers, geological engineers, mining engineers. We have world-class post-secondary education institutions, universities that are training the people who will come up with the solutions that allow us to protect our natural environment and get the benefit of these resources. And I believe we can do both. I have faith in New Brunswickers that we can put a regulatory process in place that protects us, and that we can use those innovations, new technologies, and new ideas to make this the best and safest mine in the country, and see the benefit of those resources for New Brunswickers, for our economy and our system.
Yeah, certainly the revenue would be of help with a large looming deficit.
Yeah, good paying jobs, revenue that goes towards government services that are not getting any cheaper. We need more health care here in New Brunswick. We need New Brunswickers to have better access to timely care. And so having the money to be able to invest in our health care system, and which then produces a healthy population, which contributes to a healthy economy, all of those things have to go together. We need this circle to be connected.
You mentioned health care. You've opened 11 collaborative centers so far. Are they at the point that you want them to be? Are they operating as they should?
Yeah, well, given that our 11th announcement was just about a week ago, they're all in different stages. And actually, this is part of the beauty of the approach that we've taken, is that it's not one size fits all. Every one of the 11 clinics that we announced is unique. And is requiring different kinds of supports from our government. But I think that's what's unlocked it. The previous government had committed to 4 of these and couldn't get one open because they were operating in this rigid box of here's what it's going to be. Our team has said collaborative care means a team of professionals coming together and deciding even amongst themselves how they want to practice and who they want to be and where they want to serve. And if they want to do that with the Department of Health or the Regional Health Authority or with Medivy or on their own, nurse practitioner-led, pharmacist-led, family doctor-led, we are welcome to all of that because we want to see every flower bloom. New Brunswick needs all kinds of primary care. And so each clinic is a little different. It's at a little different stage. Some of them we've invested in net new nurse practitioners and doctors, and some it's technology, and some it's space. So we're thrilled to make the change and to start to turn the ship. We promised 10. We knew that was going to be ambitious because we're asking people to change behavior. We've had to change regulation, change what DTI is allowed to do in terms of space and leases to make this work. But we were focused on it, and we announced 11 clinics, and some of those early ones that we announced have taken patients off the list. We've got 14,000 patients coming off the list. I need to double that, triple that, quadruple that, until every New Brunswicker has care close to home.
And is the hope that'll have an impact on those wait times in emergency rooms? There's been so much made of that in the last while.
The challenge in emergency rooms is complex. One of the challenges is the front end. We have people showing up who have no other source of care. They need to get their prescription refilled. They need to get their kid looked at because that fever is high, and it's not the kind of thing that you can. I'm not going to keep a kid with 104-degree fever at home, right? You got to bring them. They have to be cared for. But that's not what the emergency rooms were built to do. But without primary care, then there's nowhere else for someone to go. So if we can give everyone access to timely primary care in community, then that takes one of the pressures off our emergency rooms.
I've asked the same question of your colleagues in the Maritimes about healthcare and just how much you can continue to spend. And there needs to be those. They all acknowledge there needs to be those investments. But how long healthcare will eat up as much money as you give it, and the deficits are ballooning in all 3 provinces. So how much can you continue to put into the system until it's no longer sustainable to keep doing that?
That's a good question. Our plan is to invest up front. Right? If we have the strongest preventative and primary care system possible, then the demand on our acute care system should reduce. And that's the most expensive kind of care, right? When you're getting emergency room care, we're talking about thousands of dollars a day of expense versus a preventative or primary care appointment, which is in the tens of dollars per day. And so I'm going to invest in these tens of dollars to avoid spending the thousands of dollars. And so we need to get that balance right. And until you have a fully functioning primary care system, you're not going to see the savings in the acute care system. And so to me, there's a tipping point. We haven't reached it yet, but once you have good health care available to everyone when they need it, then you're actually going to see that curve start to bend the other way.
This past year, 2025, dominated by trade, by tariffs. The Natural Resources Minister just mentioned that he's going to have a task force look into how to help the forestry industry. There's no timeline on that. Can New Brunswick, how long can New Brunswick wait to hear something? Because it's every day there's something, right?
It's urgent. We're pretty lucky here in New Brunswick. We have a very resilient industry. We have a really collaborative industry. They actually all work together to support each other at times like these. I'm not sure you can say the same for some of the industry in other provinces that are more competitive internally. So folks have been working really hard to avoid layoffs and curtailments in the face of a 45% tariff, but they can't hold that position for much longer. Certainly not months and months for a task force to meet and to determine a solution when we're going to already be into those layoffs and those reductions into 2026. So what we need is a deal. We need Ottawa to get to Washington. We need them to present a deal to the coalition, and we need to start negotiating to get those tariffs off. And industry across Canada has come together to provide some of those tools to the federal government. We now need them to make that trip to Washington and get that issue back on the negotiating table.
Ottawa has been urging patience. That you want to get the right deal, and you've said it yourself, you want to get the right deal, not the first deal. But is patience waning?
Yes, I think the patience approach might apply for the rest of the tariff argument, but the softwood lumber battle has been going on for years and years and years. Decades, thank you. So I don't think the call for patience works in the face of the 45% tariffs that folks are facing and what that means for the loss of business, the loss of employment, the measurable impact of GDP here in New Brunswick. It's 0.5% reduction in our GDP. It's thousands and thousands of jobs lost in the very near future. So there is absolutely urgency to get a deal done. And we're not taking the first deal. This is something that's been negotiated for years and years. We're on to, deal or proposal number, I don't know what, 78. So I think the patience is waning, and we need something.
Last year when we sat here, I asked you about New Brunswick Power, and the consultation in the province is taking place, and the turnout has not necessarily been robust. And I'm wondering why you think that might be. I mean, it's such a concern. We hear about it all the time about power bills and the concern about Point LaPro and possible inability to generate enough power. And you said at the time, if the results come back, and one of the things that's mentioned is a sale of NB Power, that you might be open to that. Is that still your position?
Oh, absolutely. Everything remains on the table. I mean, we haven't seen the report from the panelists yet, but we know they've been out there talking to New Brunswickers. Agreed, it wasn't maybe the amount of people we anticipated would show up to the in-person sessions. They've had online sessions, but they've also been out there engaging with stakeholder groups that represent lots of New Brunswickers that share different points of view. They've been talking to NB Power folks. They've been talking to energy experts outside of our province and looking at how things are done in other places. And I think they're going to put forward a strong set of recommendations that our government is going to review really seriously. If that includes the recommendation of a sale, then we will give that due and strong consideration, because we can't keep doing things the way that we're doing them. We've got to change things such that New Brunswickers can feel confident that they're getting reliable power, that we have sufficient power, that it's affordable, and that it's both as environmentally sustainable as possible and as fiscally sustainable as possible.
That's one of the reports we'll be seeing in the new year, and we hope to talk about that with you when it comes up, of course, many other issues. Thank you very much, Premier, and happy holidays, and have a happy new year.
Yeah, happy holidays to you too.
In our look at health and medical headlines, how buzzwords on food packaging could be a cause for pause. That's one of the stories CTV's Callum Smith has in tonight's edition of Lifeline.
While people may feel pride in avoiding the glazed pastries in the grocery store, instead opting for the all-natural granola or yogurts made with real fruit and superfood smoothies, experts are calling for caution. Healthy grocery buzzwords often cover up an unhealthy amount of sugar. A study from a Mount Sinai Medical School and Princeton University professor says many companies use clever marketing to distract customers. Nicole Lavina suggests a double look at nutrition facts can help. A new state law in New York will require some social media platforms to display warning labels about their potential harm to the mental health of young users. Inked by New York's governor, it will specifically target those with infinite scrolling, autoplay, and algorithmic feeds. It comes after Australia imposed a social media ban for children under 16. New York is joining states like California and Minnesota that have similar social media laws. Finally, a Prince Edward Island farmer is trading cattle manure for grazing land as part of a Living Labs project aimed at improving soil health and reducing costs. Nick Green's project pairs farmers with agriculture and agri-food Canada researchers to test practices such as rotational grazing, which has boosted potato yields by up to 28% while improving soil stability. Rising fertilizer prices have made manure a cheaper alternative, and researchers are also studying injection methods that cut nitrogen loss by about 35%. With health and medical news, I'm Callum Smith for The Lifeline.
Last night, we began our A to Z alphabet of the top news stories of the year. Well, tonight, a search for missing children, a series of strikes, a new pope, and much more, as CTV's Stephanie Seekos picks up things at the letter J.
In part 2 of our recap of the major stories from the past year, we begin with J for job action. From Air Canada to Canada Post and several university strikes, thousands of people walked off the job this year. More than 1,000 full-time faculty at Dalhousie University were locked out just ahead of the start of the school year, impacting classes for thousands of students. Part-time faculty at Mount St. Vincent University and St. Mary's University went on strike in October for 3 weeks. K is for King. Dennis King stepped down as Prince Edward Island's premier after 6 years in the role.
I have had the great honor and pleasure to have been premier during what I believe has been a very consequential time in our province's history.
Just over a week later, King was appointed as the ambassador to Ireland. The PC caucus chose MLA Rob Lance as the party's interim leader. He was sworn in as premier on February 21st, the same day King's resignation took effect. But he resigned from the job on December 11th in an official bid for the party's permanent leadership. That vote is scheduled for February. MLA Blois Thompson was then sworn in as premier, the third person to hold the office this year. L is for lobsters. A pair of rare lobsters became a must-see attraction this summer in Dartmouth. The cotton candy-colored lobster is said to be 1 in 100 million. It was named Moon Mist after the iconic Nova Scotia ice cream flavor. The other lobster, named Bingo after a children's cartoon character, is split red and black. It is believed to be 1 in 50 million. M is for missing children. Jack and Lily Sullivan were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia on May 2nd.
I never gave up hope since day one, and I want to see them brought home. That's the main objective here.
Countless searches have taken place, spanning dozens of kilometers for 6-year-old Lily and Jack, who would now be 5. In late September, RCMP brought in cadaver dogs to search for the siblings, but nothing was found. Court documents released in the summer suggest investigators do not think the children's disappearances involved foul play. N is for Northern Lights. Maritimers were treated to a dazzling display in November. It is fairly rare to see the Northern Lights in our region, but a severe geomagnetic storm triggered an active aurora borealis, leading to the spectacular sight. O is for offshore wind. Ottawa is prepared to work with Nova Scotia to ramp up its ambitious plans for Canada's first offshore wind farms. The goal is to harness Nova Scotia's offshore wind resources to provide renewable energy for Atlantic Canada and strengthen connections between provinces. The Wind West project was among 5 others selected by Prime Minister Carney, which are still in the early stages. P is for Pope. Pope Francis died in April at the age of 88. In his 12 years as Pope, he became known for his non-traditional papacy and made history for delivering a long-awaited apology for the Roman Catholic Church's role in Canadian residential schools. Weeks following his death, the first American Pope was elected. Catholic cardinals broke with tradition in electing Chicago-born missionary Robert Prevost. The 69-year-old spent his career ministering in Peru and took the name Leo XIV. Q is for QMJHL. There were some ups and downs in the Quebec Maritime's Junior Hockey League, particularly in New Brunswick. The Acadie Bathurst Titan were sold late last year and have now relocated to St. John's, Newfoundland this year. They are now called the Newfoundland Regiment. Meanwhile, the Moncton Wildcats won the Q League for just their third time ever and the first time since 2010. They made it to the Memorial Cup semifinal, where they lost to the London Knights. That concludes part 2 of our A to Z series, looking back into some of the most notable stories of 2025. We'll pick back up with R tomorrow night.
Taking a look at the markets, the Dow closed the trading day down 94 points, and the price of silver and gold rebounded today. Silver, in particular, recovered some losses after a sharp drop yesterday. Here's B&M Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya with your business report.
Silver climbed today after recording its biggest one-day drop in more than 5 years. The metal climbed above $74 an ounce today after a 9% slide on Monday. Silver is now on track for a 35% monthly gain. Gold also edged up after its steepest drop in 2 months. And despite the pullback earlier this week, gold and silver remain on track for their best annual performance since 1979. And here's the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar dropped slightly to $73.02. West Texas Intermediate is down to $57.94. Western Canadian Select also ended the day lower at $44.61. And the TSX lost 30 points today, closing at 31,866. Those are your business headlines. I'm Lindsay Biscaya.
Kalen with a look at New Year's Eve.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. So out here on the weather deck, it's cold, it's a little bit gusty, got a flurry on the go here, but remember there are parts of Nova Scotia with the risk of snow squalls as we move through tonight into tomorrow, including in around the Minas Basin, down through the Annapolis Valley and into the Tri-County region in the southwest. Taking a look at our viewer picture for tonight, it's a beautiful shot of a sunrise. This was actually, I think, from yesterday before we had all that inclement weather move in, that mixture of snow, freezing rain and rain. This is from Karen Sutherland and was sent from the Nicto area in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia, where for tonight and for tomorrow it is flurries with a risk of snow squalls, and the high temperature tomorrow is around -3. Day planner for tomorrow around the Maritime region. So aside from those parts of Nova Scotia, still seeing flurries. We start off the day with partly cloudy conditions in Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick. You can see the morning temperatures are going to be quite cold and accompanied by a still blustery wind. So it's a day to bundle up for tomorrow. Wednesday afternoon, mix of sun and cloud, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, eastern areas of Nova Scotia, but cloudier into the west of Nova Scotia with still a chance of some flurries. If you are thinking about your New Year's Eve plans for later Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, it is going to be a cold one this year in the region, so bundle up for it. Well, let's find out what's coming up tomorrow on Your Morning Atlantic.
Wednesday on Your Morning Atlantic, kickstarting 2026.
Find out why many of us feel sluggish in January and learn some easy fixes to help you stay motivated and energized.
Start your morning with us Wednesday on Your Morning Atlantic on CTV2 and Crave.
Finally for us tonight, a New Brunswick city is asking locals to dig deep for ideas of what to name its fleet of snowplows. The city of Bathurst is accepting name submissions, family friendly, please. Puns, local references, and clever winter wordplay are all welcome. An online vote will be held in January to choose 3 winning names. In recent years, St. John, Grand Bay Westfield, Riverview, and Dieppe, they've all held similar contests. The winning names range from Kevin to Plow Chicka Plow Plow. Can't make that up. That is our look at the day here at home. Jesse Thomas has our late news at 11:30. CTVNewsAtlantic.ca has updates anytime. I'm Todd Battis. I hope you'll join us tomorrow for the last newscast of 2025. Till then, have a good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.